Welcome back to episode 4 of Where Around Britain, and thanks for some positive comments on what I've produced so far. In this episode I go from Stromness on mainland Orkney across to Cape Wrath, and then do a few passages hopping down the west coast to Plockton. The trip to Cape Wrath from Stromness is a long one, 80 to 90 miles, and unfortunately I got to Stromness on I think it was the 19th, the Friday, and Sunday was a fairly light wind day, and then after that there was at least a week of force 5 plus westerlies forecast, which would make it impossible for me to go ahead. So I decided to set off on the Sunday and take what I found. I just thought I'd walk out to the headland and have a look at the channel leaving Stromness. I'll be doing this in about 12 hours time, so it's just you can see here in the middle it's quite rough in the middle there of the channel, but you can go either side near the shore and avoid all that rough water. So this is the chart showing Hoy Sound, and you can see here markings of 4.5 knots, 5 knots, tidal streams through the sound there. And after my inspection the day before, and also speaking to the harbour master, who had the same conclusion, that basically staying to the sides, either to the north or south of the main tidal stream, would be fine. So I plan to leave Stromness and head straight across towards Gramesea, and then go along fairly near the shore, heading sort of west southwest along the side of Hoy. I left Stromness at 4 in the morning, another early start, and crossed over to the south side, and had a fairly comfortable ride through the tidal stream there. And then I was quite keen to visit the old man of Hoy on the west side of the island, so I continued hugging the coast of Hoy, heading west and then south until I got to the old man. I climbed this sea stack 30 odd years ago, and so it's quite nice to go back and see it again from the sea. After that I turned west and headed out across towards Cape Wrath. Unfortunately the wind died fairly soon, and I ended up motoring from then on almost all the way to Cape Wrath. There was quite a big swell rolling in, I guess like an Atlantic swell, and I got terrible seasickness for about 6 hours, which was miserable, but otherwise it was fairly uneventful. A bit of sailing, a bit of motor sailing, but mainly motoring. I got to Cape Wrath about 6 o'clock in the evening, and decided with the swell that was there to take the outside route, staying a mile or so offshore, and then turn south and managed to do a bit of sailing and close hauled down the coast. It's quite dramatic with the swell rolling into shore, and been a long day, so I'm starting to feel tired at this point. It's great to see another sea stack going past. This is Umbilcale, or the Shepherd, which is one of 3 stacks along this passage, and I pushed on there and eventually got down to Loch Laxford, which is where I decided to go in for the night. And I went into the loch and then found a little bay called Fanagmore Bay, where I was going to stop for the night. Morning all. just thought I'd give you a little taster of where I came into last night at the end of my rather long epic passage from Stromness. This is a little bay on the south side of Loch Laxford called Bay, and came in here about 11, and initially picked up a mooring buoy, but then as I got into bed I heard it scraping on the side of the hull and it had barnacles on, so I had to quickly change the plan and put the anchor down. But anyway, in the end had a peaceful night, and it's a pretty epic passage. As you come around Cape Wrath, you've got the big Atlantic swell rolling in, and as it reaches the shore it's all crashing into the cliffs all the way down, so you get this amazing sort of wave scenery as you come down and come into the loch, and then once you're in it's all nice and peaceful. Heard a cuckoo this morning, and I'm just planning to move to a slightly more sheltered anchorage in the next hour or two. This is the morning after the day before when I did a long passage from Stromness to Loch Laxford, and I'm just moving anchorage from Bay to Loch and just trying to do it with sailing alone after all the motoring yesterday. What a beautiful vista. When I was a teenager I came on a 2-week adventure outdoor holiday on the Loch here, so it's a little bit of a nostalgic trip to revisit the place. It took me about 5 goes to get my anchor to set properly after this first attempt. I think there's a lot of kelp on the seabed, and eventually managed to get a good set, and it was a good job because it was pretty windy for the next couple of days, and so it was nice to be confident of my anchor. John Ridgway is the guy who set up the outward bound centre that I went to, and this is his Ketch English Rose 4, which he entered into the 1968 Golden Globe race, although he had to retire from it. He was an ex-para, had rowed across the Atlantic and done various other things, so you can imagine the camp was fairly hardcore. From Loch I headed south, and the big challenge of this section was a couple of headlands to get round with mainly westerly winds. This meant each day leaving the shelter of a loch and then going out to the headland to then continue south, often a couple 2 to 3 hours of motor sailing or just motoring into the swell just to get round the headland so I could continue south, which made a pretty heavy duty start to the day. However, the sailing in between the headlands was fantastic. just stopped for tea at Harbour Island, and this is, I think, the first anchorage on this bit of the coast that I identified on Google Earth and thought it would be a lovely place to come and stop. So here I am. Not going to spend the night because I've got plans to get further south tonight, but I thought I'd just come in 2 hours from my departure in Laxford, and just thought I'd come in and have a cup of tea, see how it is here. It's a bird reserve or sanctuary, the island, so people come from the mainland to see the birds, and there's a few waiting on the shore there for their rib to get them back to the mainland. From Harbour I had about 10 miles to go to my destination, which was Loch, and had some quite exciting reaching sailing with quite a big swell coming in behind me, and negotiated my way through the Badcoll Islands into Loch. Wind vane's doing a pretty good job of keeping control of the boat in these challenging conditions. I have this 4mm control line on a continuous loop which I can use to adjust the setting of the wind vane. That's the one I'm using just now, and that makes it easy to control things from the cockpit. I came into Loch, which was just a lovely haven of peace. Had a nice quiet evening there. I managed to catch this pup greeting its mum on the rocks. The next day I had a long 3-hour bash out against the swell to the headland, and which was Store, and came round the headland and then managed to start sailing again with a great view of the Old Man of Store, another of the iconic sea stacks along this coast. The end of the day found me in Loch, and I anchored on the east side of the island. Got some help from the local garage who ordered up some outboard oil for me from somewhere further south, and I got that up in the morning before I left. This is just me coming into the loch at the end of the day. Just a lovely evening coming into the anchorage here in Loch. A long day, about 50 miles, but managed some nice sailing once I got around the headland. It's like rather a nice place. Leaving Loch the next morning, I had to go around the next headland, which looks big on the map but not so high in reality. I think it's called Uisge, and I was heading down to Torridon, which is about another 30 miles south, and actually ended up coming into Torridon late in the evening, about 11 o'clock, and felt my way into this little bay, anchored there safely for the night. In the morning it was quite windy, with an onshore wind, and somehow one of the halyards got wrapped around the anchor light on the mast and unclipped it, so it was hanging by its wire. But by that stage it was too late for me to do anything about it, so unfortunately by the time I got to Plockton, which was my next stop, the light was no longer with me. After the usual challenges of getting out of Torridon and round the headland, I had a pretty exhilarating sail down the inner sound, which is spectacular scenery, and negotiated my way into Plockton Harbour, which is just a beautiful place, lovely sheltered village harbour, and I was met by a friend there who fed and watered me, let me do some washing in his cottage, and helped me with some passage planning for the next stage of the trip, and took me on a little tour to Kyle and across the bridge to Skye. So I just had a very nice relaxing time there. So that completes 6 days of what I would call fairly rugged sailing, and hardly saw anyone else out and about. I guess it's still quite early in the season. These next photos just give you a little flavour of what's to come in the next episode, when I spend about 3 weeks, just under 3 weeks, exploring about 14 different anchorages and harbours, including a trip out to the Western Isles, and some of my best sailing on the trip. I have to warn you, there may be some delay until the next video comes out, because I'm going to be away and I am making these videos week by week. So thanks for watching and see you next time.